So in the early days of an organization, getting on shelf is a huge goal, right? Is how are we going to get this product to market? And that's shifted over time with e-commerce and things like that. But when we're talking about getting on shelf, we want to hear a little bit about your experiences in the early days in terms of getting on shelf. And we'll start with you, Charles. And before you get into kind of your story, maybe you can share with the audience a little bit about, I'm not sure all entrepreneurs in the food and consumer space understand how valuable space is on those shelves and what slotting fees are and things like that. So maybe you can give us a little sense of that and then tell us a bit about Vega in the early days.
The best thing is not to pay them. And if you're a hot brand, you can get away sometimes without paying them. But yeah, I mean, retail space.
Play the small guy too.
Yeah. You know, we that's our real estate, right? So it's limited. Unlike digital, which is an unlimited shelf. You know, there's physical space allotted, and you have to fight for your inches or your. Luckily, if you can get feet, then you get feet. And we measured our success on you know how well we did dollars per inch or foot or whatever it may be. So. But early on, when you're little, the best thing you can do is try and find other little people who'll take a chance on you, because you can't just go to a big guy like Loblaws and say, "Hey, I just started up, carry me." They'll look at you and go like, "Grow up, son." Even though I did try, that's what I got told. And so my days were starting off with mom and pop shops, where I was able to walk into a store and talk to an owner, and the owner could say, "I like this kid. I think he's gonna do what he says, and I'll take a chance on him. And if it doesn't, then I'm gonna return it, and he's gonna give me my money back." And which is what I did. And I remember starting every day off by making 100 phone calls by phone to try and book 10 appointments so that I could go and see those 10 people one day, and I would walk in there with this little box of my products, and my goal was to not leave with that freaking box. Even if I had to give it on consignment, I'm not going to leave with a box. That's literally out of the back of my truck was how I started. And in my first year, opened up like maybe 200 stores, literally door to door, you know, and did 150,000 in revenue. You know, that's the sludge. That's the part no one knows about. You know, Vega overnight success, right? No, it's 14 years of toiling. Right. Where the first few years before I met Brendan was literally digging holes and refilling them back up again. Right. So no glamour in that.
Yeah, I would say you go, you know, as an entrepreneur, as a business, you have to feel like a water going down a river. You have to go where the easiest is to go first. So BC. My first break was, you know, a health food store. Livestream was called at the time, but very quickly, Save on the Jimmy Patterson group.
Save on Foods.
Save on Food. Yeah, they give me my first break because I'm a local guy. So now you have choices also owned by Meinhardt. You go see the people that want to encourage. Even Whole Food does that. That encourage. Let me do a demo. Can I do a demo on your show? Can I do a test? And you know, tons of people want to help you, but ideally, you need to find people that are sympathetic with you. Like when I at the time at Walmart, not Walmart, the one in Gastown, what's it called? The Big N. Anyway, that was one of the first supermarket. My product was in the meat department, and realized I couldn't find my product because the meat guy was hiding my product under the real meat because he didn't want me to be successful. They were a butcher, and they say, why is the buyer putting that Schmidt in my location? So I think you grow, but you know, the e-commerce is nice, I would say, because Canada, I think there was tons of article about some of the big guy bullying the small guy. You know, it's slotting fee and getting... So, and I would say if you are, the sooner you can get international to the U.S., that's the best, because then you have diversity of market, diversity of currency. Because Canada is a tough market. Loblaw owns 40% of the market. So if you're not in Loblaw, and some of the big guys don't really understand that they need you. I went to Safeway a long time ago, and she says, well, unless you pay me so much, I can put another McCain pizza. And I said, how many McCain pizza can you put on your shelf? Right. Yeah. You need diversity. You know, it's about educating the buyer too. Yeah, totally. Because a lot of the buyer, they're looking at their number and every week. And so you are educating them that there's a new wave coming, there's a new buyer. And we're part of that new supply that can help you long term. Yeah. So you need to educate the buyer. And I said, how many pizzas are you going to sell? You need a variety of products. So I would, and that's the best job of a sales guy. Help the buyer do his job by educating him.
Right.
You know.
And so Charles, on your story about the, I don't know how many visits or calls it was to get as many visits as you did to sell 150,000, but that clearly is an experience of hearing directly from the buyer who represents the customers at that standpoint. And in companies today that have the ability to outsource through brokers or external salespeople, what's your take on kind of passing off that?
Yeah, I mean, so I would use them as a tool, not just as a solution. Like, you know, you can't abdicate responsibility for sales ever. So we started off direct selling, then we ended up getting a distributor, and then we took it back to direct selling. And at the end, all the way to the end, to the finish line, we were a direct seller. No other company of our size selling into the places we sold to were direct sellers. All distributors or brokers, both usually.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do that, but we had a 100-person sales team built out, and we had incredibly deep relationships at the store level. So we did it really differently from the typical food company. And I'm not sure it's doable again because we did it primarily through Whole Foods, which at the time was very decentralized before Amazon purchased them. And they had a lot of in-store, in-region decision-making that you couldn't buy these programs nationally. You had to be in there getting favors. And so we were actually able to define our success in a store, predict, by the quality of the relationship. So we called it the handshake, hug, hangout trifecta. So if you were going in there and you had a handshake type relationship, we're probably at 2 or 3 points of interruption in the store, maybe 4 promos a year, and we're gonna do okay. If we had a hug relationship, we're gonna have 6 to 8 interruptions in the store. We're gonna get demos every week. We're gonna have all these big end caps, and we're gonna do way more. If we had a hangout one, that's when the really big numbers would go. And so we actually classified it that way and did guerrilla in store, getting all these favors. And you know, it is still somewhat doable today in the independent stores still, where if they really like you, like what Yves said, being sympathetic, I love that because it's so true. We begged for them to carry our products. But we'd say, I will demo the crap out of it. I'll do whatever it takes to sell it off your shelf. I'll prove it to you. And you do it. We did so many demos ourselves, me and Brendan on the floor doing it. And when you get those results and you show those velocity numbers, then they'll go, oh, okay, I'll give you more doors, or I'll give you more space, more feet. I won't even charge you because you're doing so well, stuff like that.
But I think, Charles, you guys did an amazing job. They're your ambassador. They were one of the first one to create a culture. It was almost cultish. That the people who work with Vega, they were passionate. They were going in a store, and I would go in a store and I would say to my sales guy, how is this guy is in 5 locations? You know, like he was beside the banana. He was the milkshake. He was everywhere. And I said, how does he get direct to sales? And so I think that was a key selling proposition that you did early on. That was very good.
Yeah, very hard to do though. Similar to like what you said about investing in facilities. Well, we invested in this huge group of salespeople. Even though we weren't that big a company, we had more salespeople than people 10 times our size. So very high cost of that, but in exchange for that, we got very high velocities for it. So kind of like your analogy around having a lot of money in facilities, we had a lot of money in people, but it paid back for us. I'm not saying it worked for everybody, but it worked for us.
So Charles, for the early and growth stage food company, you mentioned sales velocities, and I'm always blown away when I'm in kind of food company board meetings, and you know, management brings up detailed stats, SPINS data, Nielsen data around, you know, how many units per SKU and per store and per category. How do we compare to the category? Can you share a little bit on how, especially nowadays, data plays a role in terms of whether it's convincing a buyer or a store or yourselves that something's going right or wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say that, you know, people who look too early at how many doors they're in are kind of looking at the wrong numbers or the wrong data. It really should be first establishing being really important to some group of somebody. Like I call it build tribe. And then that tribe should be very high users. So high quality customers that buy a lot, high velocity in as few stores as possible, high sales in the fewest SKUs possible. That narrow and deep mentality early on will allow you to see how big your business can get. If you go wide and sprawl everywhere, it's super hard to figure out how to be successful and how to change when you have so much breadth already. You don't know what actually works, what doesn't work, and now you're hoping. And so when guys are talking about, oh, my ACV, which is a measure of how broadly you're distributed. Too early, it's the wrong math. It should be more about velocity, same store sales, year over year, things like that matter a lot more. So we're really big on sort of the narrow and deep mentality.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the advice I give to the entrepreneur. Understand why it sells, where it sells. So do demo interception. When I had my first packaging redesign, I did an interception, and I asked the person, I said, so which brand did you just bought? And he said, the Blue Label. I said, no, but what the brand is? I don't know. My wife told me to buy the Blue Label. So I realized we had an issue with the packaging. And so, a funny story about data. We were growing. Gardein was growing the category every year. 75% of the growth came from Gardein. Safeway in the U.S., we were 1,500 stores, didn't want Gardein. So we went to see them, and the guy said, no. He had a relation with the competitor's broker that we didn't know, and that's sometimes you don't know why you're not in a store. It's because of side relation. And so we went to see him, and he said, no, it's the same as Morningstar and all that kind of stuff. We came back the year after, and the category had grown 25%. His sales in the category went down 12%. And we show him that number, and he said, this is Gardein. And he says, I guess you're going on the shelf.
Can't argue
So data is very powerful to use it appropriately. But if you're a small business, I would say do your work in a small numbers of store. Do your homework. Is your product priced the right way, the right amount? Most people think, they must sell a lot. Well, Safeway is happy with 3 or 4 package per week.
Yeah.
That's what sells in the freezing department. So it's not like 5 cases. It's a question of hitting the right store and its volume eventually. Because, Yves Veggie Cuisine and Gardein grew. Once you create a success, then it's a question of distribution. That's how you sell growth.
Exactly. Once you know your formula, what causes sales, and you have it all dialed, then it's just easy to turn on more geo. Right? More markets, more stores, it's easy replication. But if you haven't figured out your secret sauce before that, and you're trying to do that when you're already overly broadly distributed, that's freaking expensive and super hard to change, and you don't even know. You don't know. We made that mistake early on too.
And once you have distribution, then you bring more product.
I think from the investor marketing standpoint of how to sell the future, you can much more demonstrate, hey, we've gone this deep in these markets. These are the other 46 markets in North America we're going after. Here's our plan. And a capital raising story, I mean, that's much more.
And if you don't mean anything to at least a smaller, more easily definable segment, how do you plan to do it to a broader one? Like if you can't identify something. So when I hear people say, oh yeah, we sell in all these stores, we're in Walmart. I'm like, if you're already all there and you're doing $1 million, I can't help you. Right? I'm sorry, but I'm not interested.
I think
be realistic.
That is something that many entrepreneurs see that as the goal, is to get into those doors and only to raise the next equity.
We went to Walmart in year 15, Costco in year 13. Like, that's a long time. But when we did, we were like guns a-blazing.
And much more valuable to the owners at that point.
And we'd already, prior to that, proven out the markets that are prior to that, the supermarkets, obviously all the natural channels and so forth, and gotten, not saturation, but very, very high adoption in each successive market. Before you take on one that's less likely to be successful, you better own the ones beforehand and then figure out how to keep them on as you bring into the more ancillary markets, right? Which is an art in self, category management, and making sure that, when you go to Costco, you don't burn all your existing distribution. You have to do it in a way that respects the legacy that you built with your customers before and stuff like that. That's another whole.
Well, when I launched, Walmart came to us, and we turned them down almost 4 years, because Whole Foods told us, if you're in Walmart, you're out of here. Exactly. So there's a little bit of a bullying game. And before that, it was Trader Joe. Whole Foods told us, if you're in Trader Joe, you're out of here. So I don't think that happened that much anymore, but we finally did a package for Walmart, different size, different, trying to, so people don't see the price. They cannot compare the price. And because, and that's the challenge sometimes with Costco. is people
Right.
say, why is it so cheap? Well, at Costco, you need to do $1,000 a week per store. And most people don't realize why they have so many demo, because it's the manufacturers trying to get to the $1,000 a week. And when you go Costco, you pay retail price for your demo product. So you're buying your own product at retail. So they have the great formula.